Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we're going to be dealing with just one verse, Deuteronomy chapter 31 and verse 6. This is a verse in which Moses is encouraging the Israelites. You know, they have a very, very big task before them. They're going to go up against these big nations, large in number, large in stature, with fortified cities. It was going to be a very difficult task. And you can imagine the fear and the anxiety that must be in their hearts as they anticipate engaging these different nations. And so this is what Moses tells them. He says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or tremble at them. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you." And so Moses here is encouraging them to be strong. And I don't think here he's talking about physically strong. You know, God didn't need them to be physically strong. He was going to be strong for them. What's more important for them at this point was to be mentally strong. You know, if something's strong, it means, if someone's strong, it means that they can lift heavy loads, and it also means that they're not easily moved. And they needed both of those things mentally. They needed to be able to carry the heavy burden of the responsibility that they had in undergoing this task. And they also needed to be unmoved. They needed to not withdraw like the previous generation did, where they became fearful and they said, "Hey, we can't do it," and they gave up. They had to be mentally tough. They needed to be mentally strong, and then they also needed to be courageous, he tells them. They were going to need a lot of courage to go up against these nations. They needed to be courageous as they enter into this new land that they had never seen before, going up against people that they never knew before, in front of a bunch of strangers that, you know, last they heard was very, very large, very, very big, and very numerous. They needed courage as they went out. And they also needed to not be afraid. Being afraid was their greatest enemy. You know, these nations might have been numerous, they might have been large in size, but that wasn't their real problem. The biggest enemy that they had to go against is their fear. It was the only thing that would conquer them, the only thing that would keep them from entering into the land and possessing it was what was on the inside, not what was on the outside. Their fear could take over and cause them to miss out on the blessing God had prepared for them. And then they were not to tremble either, to not become so physically fearful that they were unable to fight, or unwilling to fight, might be a better way to put it. And so he says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or tremble at them." Now, if you're an Israelite and you're listening to this, and you're the one that's going to have to go out and fight these battles, and it's your life that's at stake, and it's your family's life that is at stake, when everything is on the line, and you listen to Moses telling you this, you say, how can Moses be so bold as to say this? How can he tell us not to be afraid? How can he tell us not to tremble? How can he tell us to be strong and courageous? Well, Moses had very good reason for telling them to be strong and courageous and not be afraid. And he goes on to say, he says, "For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you." The first point he makes is that God's presence was going to be with them, and he was their God. This was the God that had guided them. Or actually, going back before that, it's the God that, through great signs and wonders, pulled them out of Egypt. Egypt was a very strong nation, and God was able to take them out of that through the 10 plagues, through the parting of the Red Sea. And he was able to deliver them in a mighty and powerful way. And then his hand guided them all the way through the wilderness. He gave them the manna. He caused the water to come from the rock. They saw his fire, at the presence of his fire, or the fire of his presence at night, and the pillar of cloud in the day. They saw his presence over the tent of meeting. They had experienced God's presence all the way through the wilderness, and that presence was going to go with them as they entered into the land of promise. And so they have the God of the universe, the powerful and almighty God, there with them. That should be enough in and of itself to give them courage. But he goes on. He says, not only will God's presence be there, but he will not fail you. Other translations say he will not leave you. In other words, God is not going to back out on you. He's not going to be with you one moment and then back out and say, well, okay, never mind. God was going to be with them, and he was going to be someone that they could rely on, someone that they could trust, someone they could have faith in. And so he was not going to fail them. He was not going to leave them. He was going to be right there in the midst with them in the battle, helping them and fulfilling the word that he had promised to them. And it says he will not forsake you. To forsake means to utterly just do away with, or to walk away from. Although we could look at the Israelites and say God would have a lot of reasons to forsake them, his promise was that he was not going to forsake them. He was going to stick it through to the end with them to get them to the place he wanted them to be and that he had promised that they would be. And so the Israelites, based on that, could go over the Jordan with confidence, in faith, knowing that God was with them. He was not going to fail them, nor was he going to forsake them. But now we got to look at our own lives. You know, there's a lot of times in life where we become fearful, right? Maybe it's when we look at our nation and we look at the future, what life will be like in the next, 10, 15, 20 years. Maybe the unknown of the future causes us to be afraid. Or maybe it's not by looking that far ahead. Maybe it's just looking at each day, Sometimes we go through seasons where every day is a struggle. We wake up with a fear in our hearts every single day as we contemplate maybe some very difficult tasks that we have to undergo. Maybe we are going to have to deal with some people who are very difficult. Maybe there are just circumstances that we're having to deal with that we don't have the solution for and we don't know how to fix. We are at a loss, and that causes us to be afraid. To not be in control is very, very fearful, or causes a whole lot of fear. Well, you know what? It may not surprise you to say this, but the same promise that the Israelites had that should have given them strength, mental strength, and then also courage, is the same word that we can receive as well. Matter of fact, Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 5 gives us the same message, and there he's applying it to Christians. And so we as Christians can take this same word for ourselves. He will not leave us, nor will he forsake us. And think about that. When you wake up in the morning, you go out that front door, wherever you're going, if you're going to school or if you're going to your job site, wherever it is you're going, the God of the universe, the creator of the universe, is with you. He is with you in a very intimate way, in a very close way. His spirit is in you. His presence is all around you. God is with you wherever you go. And that should give you courage when you have to enter into a difficult situation, when you have to encounter maybe a difficult person at work or whatever it is. God's presence is with you. That should give you comfort. So before you walk out the door, don't leave until you have meditated on the fact that God is with you and that you begin to sense his real presence in your life. That will give you courage. That will give you strength. But then also remember that he will not fail you. You can count on God. That's basically what that means. You can count on him. He's going to help you through whatever it is that you're dealing with today. And then also remember that he will not forsake you. He will always be there. He will always be there to guide you. He will always be there to give you the strength that you need, the inner strength that you need. His hand will be there wherever you are. And so we have every reason to walk out that front door with confidence. Confidence in our God, faith in our God, trusting our God, and knowing that there is nothing in this earth that we can encounter that's bigger or greater or more powerful than the God that we serve and the God that is with us. So let's let that be our encouragement today. I really thank you guys for watching the video today. And I wish you the best today, and I hope things go well for you. I love you guys. God bless.